Okay, so what's going on, Christian? How are you?
Great. I'm great. How are you, Jonah?
I sense a bit of sarcasm in that. I'm doing okay. I'm okay. Been better. Been a lot better, but I'm
That's
okay.
true. That is true. I've also been a lot better. Um, I hate to take the words of the great Steve Dangle, but this team is ruining my life, like quickly. I don't know where to go from here. And we're how many games into the season?
Six.
Six?
Still five.
Seven?
This game has still not wrapped up yet, but it's over. Let's be honest here. Sabres are currently losing 6-3 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're about to drop to 1-4-4, 1-4-1. Bottom of the Atlantic Division. I don't know where they sit in the overall NHL standings, but not
I think
great.
it's like 27th or 28th because
It's low.
I know the Sharks, the Avalanche, the Oilers, and one other team. They're all still winless, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but it's not going good. It is not going good at all.
You can say that again. Our record predictions from this past Sunday, not looking too great out of the gates. Did anybody
No.
predict 2 losses? I don't
Nope.
believe so.
I did predict an overtime loss. I predicted 2-0-1, right?
I thought we both went 3-0.
Oh no, last week I did 1-0-1.
Yeah.
Okay, so never mind. Just terrible.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you're on the back half of a back-to-back, but you also didn't get the win in Pittsburgh, so it doesn't really help much, using that excuse. And even though they were on a back-to-back, they didn't play good at all. I can't really put my finger on much of positives other than Ryan McLeod, who's been arguably the only good move
Such a
that
good trade.
Kevyn Adams has made.
I love watching him play. I can't believe he had so many critics in Edmonton. He is so... I understand. As someone who grew up during the Jochen Hesch Sabres tenure, I now understand why people fell in love with him, truly. I feel like I'm living through it right now. McLeod is just such a joy to watch. Wish they could clone him.
Yeah, well, you know what else would have been good? If they made more trades like that.
It's weird. The new guys are doing the best. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Byram's been one of their best players. McLeod has probably been, with Power and Byram having a rough 2 games here, he's probably been their best player through these 6 games. And Jason Zucker is probably right behind them. It's all the new guys. Crazy. Crazy how far new additions can take you.
Yeah, but your in-house talent that you've spent years cultivating is vastly underperforming. Like even Rasmus Dahlin, dude. He seems average at best now.
I think he's been fine. I think him and Yoki Haru at 5v5, coming into this game, are at a 60 expected goals for percentage. I think he's been fine.
No,
has he been, the most dominant player? No, but we talked a little bit about it last episode. Maybe the injury's still lingering, although laying a hip check on your teammate in practice probably indicates you're feeling a bit better. I think he's been fine. I think he does this every year where he just kind of takes a little bit to get into full gear, but it's not a Dylan Cozens situation where he looks lost. I still think he's been pretty good, especially considering who he's been playing with.
This team does this every year, Jonah, and for some reason we buy in every year. What's the reason for that?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer.
Kind of half watching this game tonight because I didn't want my blood pressure to get too wildly out of control after, seeing all the back and forth and disheveled mess. I was able to write down a few things that I saw. And I will preface right now saying that they're all negatives. So, Jonah, you're gonna have to help me out here with some positives, man.
All right, you know what? Nice therapy session here. Let's break it down. I figured this was how this episode was gonna go. What do you got for me?
Okay. Gonna rapid fire these off. First thing I saw, just defensive zone presence by our defenders, lackluster. There's no picking up men in front of the net. I want to say a handful of times I saw a situation where the defense already trying to sneak up the ice. There's a turnover at the blue line. They pass it back in, and there's just one guy sitting right there, right in front of Levi, just ready for that pass. And that's not just this game. Honestly, this isn't just this game. I've seen this going back to last year. Something that I did notice from the start of this season, a lot of sloppy passing. Nothing's been crisp. Nothing's been tape to tape. It's honestly been a big reason for their struggles in the transition game. I feel like that 22-23 team we saw, it's not even close to how quick they could score off the rush back then. And no one's getting to the inside. Like, it's all perimeter. There's no...
Okay. I think I'm going to dispute that a little bit. I think your point about the passing isn't wrong, but I think you're romanticizing that team a little bit in terms of, like, from start to finish, they were just the most crisp team in the world. A few days ago, the LA Kings and Ottawa Senators had a game that finished 8-7. It's early season hockey. It's sloppy, and they're still scoring goals.
Right, but you're 1-4. Like,
well, I don't disagree, but it's not like this is. It's not like they're struggling to score. I think maybe the passing has been lackluster and sloppy. I don't think that's wrong, but I will dispute them not getting to the middle of the ice. I think they're. I mean, look, right now they're a top 10 team in expected goals for percentage at 5v5. We know this. The half of this team's problems have to do with the special teams. More than half, honestly. Their power play is a negative goal differential right now. Negative goal differential on the power play. I mean, that is insane.
JJ Peterka did just score, by the way. It is 6-4.
I did see that. Could you imagine?
6-4.
Could you imagine if we...
How much time is left? 38 seconds.
They're not going to score.
But it's curtains on that game.
Yeah.
But
we know, I think we know by this point that what we saw in Prague, where they were struggling to get to the middle of the ice and all that, that's not going to continue. This team can generate offense. At least two of their four lines can do it. The fourth line, you're asking them just not to get caved in defensively, and they're not. And obviously the second line has big issues. But two of the lines are figuring it out. They're getting to the middle of the ice. They're doing good things.
So building off of that, though, we saw this. You feel like you see this iteration of the team 2 years ago, and then we saw what we didn't want to see last year, which was the complete opposite. Is this team ever going to find that medium? Ever? Because it's been 2 years, man, and I just cannot, for the life of me, wrap my head around an idea of this team figuring it out right now.
Well, at the end of the day, they were always going to be a flawed roster. So where we're at within this season, there's things I'm not worried about. Like, I'm not worried about their ability to generate goals, because I think the top line is the top line. And I think the third line, I think McLeod is such a strong player that line is going to continue to be a positive impact line. But also, there are worrying things. I am very, very worried about the power play. And even the penalty kill is weirdly letting in a lot of goals. And then most notably, we get to Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn, who just I don't know. I don't know what is going on with them. I don't know why. At least Cozens. We saw this last year, so this isn't completely out of nowhere. Jack Quinn, what happened to this guy? Like, I know we're only 6 games in, and he's never been a player to start fast, but this is just a weirdly low level of hockey for both of them. And in the case of Cozens, this is extremely worrying because he was the guy everybody was looking to have a big bounce back, or at least get back to the way he was playing under Granato 2 seasons ago. I mean, if he didn't have, it's not the end of the world if he didn't have another 30-goal, 65-plus point season again, but he just looks like a shell of himself right now.
Yeah, he doesn't look good at all. He's just, aside from the bad things aside from the bad things he does, it's like you can't even pick out a positive, man. It's either you see him making some boneheaded mistake, which leads me into my third point, which is this team is clearly soft on the puck. They're getting pickpocketed left and right. The turnovers were abysmal. That one last night in Pittsburgh on the power play, which led to the negative goal differential, which you were stating before. Top 3 most frustrating things I've seen in the last few years was just Cozens getting his pocket picked. And they're just going down on a 2-on-1. It's like you could see it coming from a mile away. Just unbelievable. And it is extremely worrying because I can't find a positive in his game anywhere other than maybe the penalty kill. But even that isn't producing. When the penalty kill as a whole is not up to par, it's like you can't really pull anything good from it anyway. Even if the player on it is like, oh, you notice him, being aggressive or whatever, getting the puck, it's like it's not working. You're getting scored on still. So
where do they go? That's so
where
funny.
we go from here.
I was just about to. Okay, so why don't we've kind of been all over the place to start here. Why don't let's stick on a topic. Let's start with Cozens. Where do you go from here? Where would you go from here as you push up your glasses or pull them down like an old man?
And put on my these are my GM glasses. Call me Lou Lamoriello right now. I'm going to push my glasses in because I'm about to make you the deal of a lifetime. Trade Cozens and Jokiharju to Vancouver for Elias Pettersson because he's struggling too, and both need a change of scenery. Right? Who says no to that deal?
And one of them's from Western Canada.
Right, exactly. But realistically, I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw something that Chad said when he said he was driving into work and he was thinking about what they could do to improve his game. I think starting with taking some responsibilities off his plate instead of scratching him immediately, I think that's a good start. But after that, if that doesn't work, and you're talking about scratching the guy, and he's making $7 million a year. And
it's another thing that makes this start so weird for him because I kind of came in with the expectation that there was a chance that Lindy Ruff maybe challenges Cozens more than the other guys. I don't know. Not take him off the second line per se, but maybe keep him off the first power play unit. Maybe don't have him for as many key minutes out there. Make him earn it. And that hasn't been the case. He's been playing with Jack Quinn and Zach Benson. He's been on the first power play unit basically this entire first 6 games. The opportunity's been there. And he just still, there's just no confidence being instilled there. And yeah, I think for now you just have to tone it back because I don't know, he's got to get out of this himself, and they gave him a chance to really have a good jump start here with where he was playing, and it's just they're not getting anything there.
It's the problem is though, it's like how do you reconstruct the top 9 to fit that?
Well, and that's the thing, like
because the third line, you don't want to break that up.
Yeah, and inevitably, what's the number one solution here that people have kind of come to? Well, move him to the wing. Well, if you do that, your second line center immediately becomes Ryan McLeod. And I think he can do that. I really do. I think he can do that. But then your third line center becomes the scenario that we were sounding the alarms for on July 5th. Hours before they dealt Matthew Savoy, Peyton Krebs is your third line center. And Sam Lafferty is your fourth. And it just becomes a really shaky situation. And then you're just scrambling to replace that. That's why I roll my eyes anytime somebody brings up Casey Middlestat when we're talking about Dylan Cozens, that they chose the wrong guy and this and that. And I roll my eyes at it. I do. But you've lost that flexibility now that Cozens is gone. Now that Middlestat is gone.
Right.
It's not like you can scratch Jack Quinn. Like, you can do it, get away with it. Congrats to Yuri Kulik on his first NHL goal tonight. You can do it because it's much easier to replace that. But Dylan Cozens, like, if this continues the entire season, and let's say that they make a decision to move on from Cozens, it's a big hole to fill because a lot is riding on him. He's supposed to be the second line center. He was never supposed to be a guy that you think about shifting to the wing.
No, not at all. It kind of reminds me shades of Casey Middlestat earlier in his career when they immediately tried to throw him at that second line center role and it just caved in on him. He got sent back down, and then, he was playing wing for some time, and then they moved him back to center. And it's a little bit different for Cozens because like he was fine for a while, and then it just bottomed out on him like midway through that. Well, bottomed out on him after he got his face caved in last year. And we haven't seen the same player since.
It's so weird. And like, yes, I know that happened, but okay, my memory could be totally jogged. Was that a concussion? Or did he just... Because his nose got messed up. That's why he wore the bubble.
Dude, if you saw, everyone saw the locker room pic with like, he looked like he had a wooden plank over his nose.
He got his face bashed in. But
it had to have been some sort of concussion.
It's just so weird that, I don't know, man. It's just like, concussions are so weird, and every one of them is different, and it affects everybody differently. But it's like, it's so weird that has to be the moment that you point to, where it's like, yeah, he got pounded, but it wasn't like he got knocked out. It wasn't like he hit his head on the ice. He took one bad blow to his face. It's like when you try to explain to somebody like how different Tim Connolly should have been in his career. And if a person who didn't know much was like, oh, why didn't he become something more? And then you show him the hit that took him out in the 2006 playoffs. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
Dude, he probably, other than that Umberger hit, probably one of the biggest open ice hits I've ever seen in my entire life. Just devastating.
And there was still a point last year. I think that it was a very, very short period, say mid-November to like mid-December, where Cozens, he looked like Dylan Cozens again. I remember this stretch, and then he went super cold the second half of the season again. I don't know. It's why it's just weird for me to point to that Hathaway fight and be like, that's the moment, because I still feel like we've seen flashes of the old Cozens. It's just, I don't know. It's just his confidence is so clearly shot. He had one rush tonight. It was when he was getting into it with Jordan Harris, and he just like fell forward, just so weak. And
the whole sorry to cut you off. The whole team looks like that. They all look weak on the puck.
I wouldn't go. I think that's a bit harsh. I think Cozens is just especially weak. I said this to you the other night. He looks slow. I haven't checked the NHL Edge data on this. I saw, obviously, there was the Jack Quinn speed data going around today. I haven't checked Dylan Cozens' stats. I swear he looks slower out there. And he was flaunting. Well, I shouldn't say flaunting. That makes it seem like he was bragging about it. But he was talking about at the start of training camp that he gained, I think, 12 pounds of muscle this summer. Which is standard for NHL players. But I don't know. It kind of looks like he slowed down a bit.
Maybe he just needs to grow into it a little more. I don't know. Maybe it's an adjustment period. I don't know. It's a lot of ifs, and it was a lot of ifs going into the season, and we knew this, which leads me into something my dad just asked me probably, I don't know, right before this game ended. Do you think this roster, and I know we've talked about it before the beginning of the season and all the off-season nonsense that went on, but do you think this roster is constructed even remotely close to what it needs to be? Is this roster built right?
Okay.
Because they're not winning.
This kind of goes back to my Dylan Cozens or Casey Middlestat complaint. What NHL franchise is choosing the guy who he's had back-to-back 50-point seasons, but the 26-year-old late bloomer over the 6'3" speedster who was a year removed from 30 goals and nearly 70 points as a 22-year-old? And no NHL franchise is choosing Casey Middlestat in that situation. And with Jack Quinn, another guy who was poised for a breakout last year, when he played, he looked good. He was still on pace for, 50-something points, probably over 20 goals, and that was with time in and out. Is this team perfectly built? No. Is it flawed? Yes.
And who's that on?
You can't count on it, we're gonna. I know we're gonna get into it. I know we're gonna get into the Kevyn Adams conversation. You can't blame Kevyn Adams for Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn no-showing to start this season. That's not his fault. Didn't one of us in our preseason hot takes say that Quinn was going to lead the team in goals? One of us did.
I think one of us must have, if you're remembering it.
So, and with Cozens, like I said, he's 2 years removed from a breakout, like a legitimate breakout season. 30 goals, nearly 70 points. It was all legitimate. And just for both of them to, I guess with Cozens, not a snap of a finger, but we saw it because we saw it last year. But with Quinn, it's a snap of a finger where they just look nothing like they did last year.
Correct. And I know it's early, and I know that I know it's early in the season, and I know there's a lot of time for them to turn it around. But if you're a GM, your team is 1-4-1, there's clearly something not right. What would a good GM do?
They would make a trade.
Okay. And what has Kevyn Adams failed to do most of the time?
Okay, but this gets back into our same old goddamn internal cap thing. Because do you blame...
No, but yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
Let's keep walking through this.
Okay.
If you're the GM of this team, in your mind, what are you going to do even if there is an internal cap?
It's tough because you can't, who are you trading off of this roster? Are you making a trade? Are you making a trade off of this roster? Or are you just trying to add? Because I feel like at the end of the day, you just want to add. Because who's playing bad on this team? It's really none of the usual culprits.
Correct.
Yoki Hardy's playing fine. It's mostly because of Dylan Cozens. Connor Clifton is mostly playing fine. It's, you're not trading Dylan Cozens. You're not trading Jack Quinn. It's not going to happen. So in any scenario you look to add, you're going to be adding money. And if long as I'm under the belief that they're just not fully willing to add money, I can't blame Kevyn Adams. I'm sorry, I can't.
And right there, this is what I'm trying to get to. This is where I'm trying to walk you to. Because you can't blame Kevyn Adams for an internal cap, but who can you blame for that?
I think we know.
I think we also do know. And you know what I think? If you're not going to spend to the cap, sell the goddamn team immediately.
Would have had a good chance. Former owner was in the building the other night, the same time as him.
That's another financial guy. It's like he would have imposed an even lower internal cap. But here's what I'm getting at. Throughout this entire drought, there's been so many issues. What's the one constant? The big guy. This has you know what I've been listening to all week? I've been listening to like all those, NFL morning talk shows when I'm at work. And all the talk this week was about the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, just canning Robert Saleh in the middle of the season. It reminds me so much of the same, just the one that organization has been snake bitten or just terrible or mismanaged or poorly run. What is the one constant through the last 25 years? It's the owner. If I'm Terry Pegula, obviously I'm not going to want to sell the team, but it's like, you got to wake up and look in the mirror, buddy. Because
it's even like, if, like, let's say Adams for some reason is the guy being cheap here. How, as you, the owner, are you not running to the Sabres offices tomorrow morning and be like, spend the money? I don't care how.
Right.
That's why I just find this logic so flawed that this is because of Adams.
And it's probably what sucks even more about it is if it keeps going this way, there's going to be calls for his job. And then where do we go there?
I mean, we can, this kind of carries over to the report this week that Adams might get a promotion. That they should probably hold off on that. Probably not the best time to announce a promotion, even though I don't think, like, it's not your typical promotion. It's more so just changing responsibilities.
Don't announce it as a promotion. Just say
you kind of have to.
You could just don't use the word promoted. This is how you do it. If you're like, politicians have to stay away from the words like tax hike, those buzzwords. Just say we have moved Kevyn Adams from the position of general manager to another managerial role.
It will be director of hockey ops.
That will
look, everybody's going to see through it.
Fine. You click the link in our bio to figure out what role Kevyn Adams has been changed to. You click the link. You have to scroll all the way down the page. It's in tiny letters at the bottom. President of hockey ops. But even let's say I don't even know why we're talking about a promotion right now with this team being 1-4, but here we are because the report that came out earlier this week. But he gets promoted. What happens after that?
Well, if he gets promoted, it's Karmanos to GM, Ventura to probably assistant GM. That's what it is. But look, you might roll your eyes. Okay, and a lot of people are going to roll their eyes. But A, Karmanos has been in the league a very long time, longer than Adams. B, has been delegated to the responsibility of the Rochester Americans, and he's been doing a damn good job there. And C, for anybody that wants Kevyn Adams fired, if he gets fired, I'm willing to bet everybody he's brought in goes. And that includes Karmanos, who's done a good job. And that includes Sam Ventura, who is probably one of the most well-respected analytics guys in the league. And all of his, whatever, Dominic Gallimini. It doesn't get better, folks. I'm sorry. I'm not rooting for Adams to get fired here. I can't. He has flaws. I hate his flaws. It's mostly like he's just so goddamn inactive. But I have to take the good with the bad in my mind. It doesn't get better in a scenario where he's no longer the GM. It just doesn't. I don't see, who do they bring in? Do
you bring in an outside hire?
Well,
or does that change the dynamic?
That's why Kevyn Adams was hired in the first place. How do we know they don't just keep it in-house again?
Right.
And just hire, who the hell's managing the Harbor Center right now? Pull him in.
Well, is there do you think bringing in an outside hire, because people are going to be calling for a tenured GM, because there hasn't been a tenured GM in this organization since Darcy Regier. Tim Murray count? Does he count?
No,
not really.
It doesn't.
Yeah, Look, so it's been a decade.
It doesn't count. But I just have a hard time believing that the guy that made this hire, because he quote felt like he was getting bad intel from the rest of the league, like when he was hiring Tim Murray or hiring Jason Botterill, everybody was telling him, "Oh yeah, this is going to work out great," and it didn't, and he felt burned that he went the Adams route. Like, I just have a hard time believing he's going to go out because guess what? He's conducting the search. If Adams gets fired, that he's going to go and give the job to someone that is going to force him to do stuff, as in open the wallet. I'm sorry. I just don't. That's why I just don't, especially six games into a season where many of his additions have looked very, very good. I can't get on board with the fire Adams idea.
Well, don't you think if let's say in this scenario, because we don't know for sure, let's say there is an internal cap. If you're Kevyn Adams, do you just go full baller and just be like, all right, we're making this move, and this move, and just spend to the cap? And then how do you deal with those repercussions? Like that's an interesting train of thought, like, what do you think would happen? Would he get fired? Would you just call Terry's bluff and he has to be like, all right, well, whatever. I don't know. It really does blow my mind that this team did go into this season completely lacking in the top six. And it's showing because things like this happen. Cozens very well might bounce back. Then, like, Quinn very well might bounce back. Don't get me wrong. Both of them, I think will. But here's the issue: when you're this thin up top, you can't afford to have one of your guys do that.
I agree. But this is why,
because they have no help. This
is why I want to turn the discussion away from Adams so much. It's because you could have added Nikolai Ehlers. He's not stopping Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn from forgetting how to play hockey. Like, this team will not win games if those two don't figure it out. That's the reality of the situation. So it's why I just cannot. I don't want to get into the GM talk. I mean, I know we got into it. I explained my reasoning, but I just don't see the point of it right now. There's honestly really no point to talk about the situation where Kevyn Adams gets fired when it was just reported he's about to get a promotion. So, this team timing is so good.
Well, the spending, man, it just really does confuse the hell out of me. And I know we did talk about it like basically more than half the off season.
Dude, we talked about the whole off season.
It just, you bought out Jeff Skinner. You have the money to use now. You don't use it, you're going to get buried in the cap 2 years from now. I mean, maybe not buried, but $7 million basically you're going to get hit with. You got to sign. Well, I guess, you know what? Maybe if Quinn doesn't perform as well as he is, maybe he doesn't get an extension. You're definitely going to pay JJ Peterka. That is a guarantee. That guy is getting the bag. Other than that, it's like, I don't understand. I don't understand the thought process, and I'd really like to know more. I wish I had just a way to pick the GM's brain just to understand, like, why do you think it was a good idea not to spend to the cap if you say there's not an internal cap and all the playoff teams I think all the playoff teams from last year spend to the cap. And there's a trend in the league for if you don't spend to the cap, it usually means you're going to be tanking or in the middle of a rebuild. And we said the rebuild was over and we just cheap it out here, or is this some sort of newfangled technique, or I don't know. But you gave up 6 goals to the Blue Jackets tonight. Like, come on, man.
Do you want to know what Levi's final total for the night was?
For what? Like
goals saved above expected?
Oh, I'm going to guess. Let me guess. Minus 3.5.
Minus 4.04.
Oh, it was close.
Yeah, worse though.
Yeah, not great.
With these last 2 games, like, you kind of get into the conversation. Is this going to be an issue? Because, okay. I'm trying to kind of collect my thoughts here because this has been a really, really downer first half of the pod. I'm not done on this team whatsoever. Like I said, I believe in their ability to score. I believe in their ability to drive offense. There's still big question marks like the power play and Cozens and Quinn, and you get the idea, and the goaltending. With the goaltending, though, it really has to pick up because we're seeing Lindy Ruff hockey here. They are driving a lot of offense, and these past 2 games especially, they're giving a lot back. But that's kind of the balance you expected here. And I would totally be willing. I don't know about you. These past 2 games have been so frustrating, but these are 2 losses that kind of, there was a period in the second, there was a short time in the second period where there was like 5 goals scored in a few minutes. Like, I'll take these losses over what happened last year.
Yeah, I guess. I also think that, yeah, I don't think it all falls on the goaltending. I think another issue is just, I just think team defense needs to be better overall. Like, especially in transition and when the other team's coming off the rush. The chances they're generating, it just seems like there's always a guy open on the back door, or someone gets through, or a shot hits the post. Something. It just seems like the other team. I feel like any other team that plays against this team, when they're playing off the rush, they look so quick, and there's always someone right there to just look for a rebound, and you get lucky sometimes. And I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I sound like a broken record, but again, 1-4-1 is just it's not ideal at all, and you need a win. You just, hey, I've been to 1 game this year, and they won in regulation. That's a dub in my book.
Start booking your tickets to Chicago, please.
I'll be on the next flight out there.
Okay. So, man, this is turning into more of like a post-game show here.
Post-mortem.
Probably would have been a good idea to go live, but oh well. Maybe in the future. Future Thursday night games, we'll do it live. But
maybe for the playoffs, if that ever happens.
Bandits playoffs. When do they start? All right. So, other things I wanted to touch on that we really haven't. The special teams, we really only mentioned in passing.
What is there to say? What is there to say?
Well, I don't think it's too encouraging that the guy they want to be the next head coach is coaching the 0-for-17 power play. I'll start with that.
I'd rather be 0-for-30 than 0-for-17 because it means you stop shooting, man.
Just horribly bad luck, too, man. Like, of course, a little bit goes into bad luck when you're 0-for-17, but it just... Like, how do you go into a full summer knowing that this was literally something that could have gotten you in last year, and it comes out this flat?
Still, though, it's like you seem like they change stuff up. They're using the bumper more. They're not standing around. I think. Do you think
just feels like hot potato?
Not only that. Do you think it's just like a lack of like high end talent on the power play? Like, the best power plays in the league, like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, not mentioning the defenseman, overrated. Just those 2 guys alone, like, it's just elite.
Well, you know that I've talked a little bit about this in the past, that they don't have a guy that it runs through. It was one of the reasons I could sort of get on board with the Patrick Kane stuff back when it was a big debate, because I knew that he was going to be a guy that could at least come in and dominate possession, and teams would respect. Like, teams don't respect the Sabres on the power play. They know if they just pressure them, they're not going to get beat with a pass. They're not going to, like, they don't have somebody that's going to make them pay. And I think a perfect example of that is what we saw against Pittsburgh. The Sabres gave them so much respect because, look, you can chase after Sidney Crosby. There's a good chance he's going to beat you with a pass, and that the Pens have a system that's going to beat you with passing. The Sabres don't have that. And part of that is, ever since Eichel left, they don't have a guy that the power play runs through. Tage isn't that guy. Dahlin plays quarterback, so he really can't do that from that spot. And the right wall has been a revolving door. They don't have that player yet.
Doesn't it just circle back to the point I made? They just need some more high-end talent on the team.
They just don't. They need a playmaker.
Right. They have good players. Like, don't get me wrong. They have good players. It's just, I feel like right there, that just ties into the other argument. They didn't address the top 6.
I should specify. Look, the San Jose Sharks weren't they like a top 10 power play last year? You can get by with average talent. My point is that, like, they shouldn't be 0 for 17 with the guys they have now. Like, you don't need a Patrick Kane to have a top 15 power play. My point was just more so making it one of the league's elites. This is just laughably bad. It should not be this. It should not be this ineffective. It shouldn't be. It just feels like they're playing hot potato with the puck when they get there. Like, there's almost so much of a overhaul that, yes, they want them doing different stuff, passing it to different positions. It's almost like their emphasis has been, don't do what you did last year. And look, the power play should not be Tage Thompson one-timers over and over again. But it almost feels like they've completely gone away from it. And my thing was always just find more ways to get him open. And, moving the puck or moving guys around the zone is a way to do that. But I don't know. They just haven't found a comfort zone. It doesn't feel like there's any set plays. They've changed a lot of personnel early on. Like, I get it, but I feel like you should stick with guys for longer periods. Like, we saw Dahlin and Power on the same unit for like a game and a half before they cut that out.
I think Tage is the guy that needs to make you pay, man. Like, you've seen it, but and you're right. They need to structure more ways to get him open, because perfect example. This basically be the same power play. The Washington Capitals. What do they do on the power play? They cycle the puck around. Ovi stands there, does nothing, and just waits for the puck to come to him until someone could pull someone away far enough to where they could make a pass to make them pay. Is that not a good idea?
Seems good on paper.
Is it worth trying? You're 0 for 17 now. Might as well, right?
I don't know. In any case, whatever they are doing now, they need to change course, and I don't know. Once again, just have an intervention.
The ship is already in the ocean. You saw the Charging Buffalo. They tweeted the Titanic already like 3 or 4 times this year. This ship is not changing course. It is right now. It is taking on water.
Okay. Concernometer. Christian, so we're 1-4-1 through 6 games. Where are we at on the concernometer for this hockey team? I was going to save this for like every Sunday episode, but I feel like it's appropriate for tonight.
Do you want me to base this off of like
how are you feeling about this team moving forward?
Well, I could broaden this to the organization as a whole.
It's just this season. The organization.
Just this season.
Keep it to this hockey team.
Okay. I will take some of my nerves out of the shakiness of the organization, and I'll put it right into the team. I'm going to run at a 7. Still really early. There's only been 6 games played. I can't even make that argument. I was going to say half of them have been against top-end teams. It's been 2 games in Prague against the Devils. And then
that's the thing
from
too,
there.
Man. It's like 1-4-1 is so ugly to look at. 1-2-1, you can kind of stomach. It's just, man, that bad. It's just a bad start. It's a horrible, awful time for a bad start for this team.
In the organization's history, this is a bad start. Well, not historically bad, but just for the organization in general.
It's pretty bad. I think the last time they started this bad was 15-16 they started this bad. They had a tough start Jack's rookie year. So it's been a little bit.
Well, I'm going to go 7.
7.
Okay. Early, like I was saying, or it's early, 6 games in. There's time to change stuff, but
I think that's fair.
This is not the start you wanted at all.
I think that's also where I'm at. Other people are going to be way higher, I think. Like, there's probably a lot of 10s out there, a lot of 9s, a lot of 8s. I'm sticking with 7 because I still believe in their ability to score. Like, I believe in Ruff as coach in terms of where their general 5v5 game is going. It's just, I don't have faith in Cozens to turn around, or at least, like, I'm not, like, I think Quinn is. Like, this is almost so weird of a start for him that I think he will. Cozens, I just don't know. I don't know. Like, if I'm Lindy Ruff, man, I'm pulling up an hour's worth of Dylan Cozens film from 22-23 and just locking him in a room and telling him to watch it. And if you don't want to cut any film, head to our YouTube and watch his goal compilation from that season.
Jonah, if this season gets too far off the rails, people are just going to be like, could you just start making compilations again?
The team did fall off when I stopped doing them. And the goaltending is it's very recency biasy, but it's been rough the last 2 games, and it was never like stellar to begin the season. And then there's obviously the power play and the penalty kills. So, like, there's a lot of worrying things about this team, but they have the basis of a good 5v5 team. So I'm not at sound the alarms, DEFCON. Is it DEFCON 5? Is DEFCON 5 the worst?
DEFCON 1 is the worst.
We always
it goes from 5 to 1. Or does it go from 5 to 0? I know it counts down. It counts down.
It counts. Oh, yeah, okay. 1 is the most.
Right.
So, yeah. So I'm not at, like, DEFCON 1. Not there yet. We're inching close, though.
We certainly are. And having to say that 6 games into the year sucks, but when it comes to this franchise and this organization, it's nothing we haven't seen before. I just want a good hockey team, man. Is it that hard, really? Is it like that hard to just be average? Even if you're an 8 seed, even if you're the Washington Capitals last year who just snuck into the playoffs, like, that's all we want right now. That is the goal.
I was thinking the other day, like, my mind was just sort of wandering on my drive home. I'm just like, man, it is actually so embarrassing that they missed last year. Like, if there was a year to end the drought, man, like, it was last year. It was such a weak conference. Like, if Lindy Ruff coaches last year's team, they get in. 100% they get in. I believe that wholeheartedly.
So many small missed opportunities that just make it even worse. The COVID year, where you get bounced from the play-in series because of a fluke. If COVID happened a week later, they could have been in that.
It's a lot of what ifs. Did you see who is it? I think Bleacher Report, Open Ice tweeted about, like, what if the Sabres got McDavid?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like we've talked about that on here. It's a fun alternate timeline. Like, what if does that motivate Babcock to sign here? Does that motivate Stamkos to sign here? What we're seeing out of Sam Reinhart now, does he become that sooner? It's fun to dream. Anyways, back to reality, which is always worse. I think
for us, at least.
I think that's where we can kind of cut off here. I don't know if there's really anything else we wanted to touch on. This is kind of just an episode where we started recording during the game, so we didn't really have a lot of time to collect our thoughts, put a docket together.
Really want to, honestly.
No, I was really hoping that I had faith that they would pull it out tonight, but Devin Levi had other plans. That's harsh. That's harsh, but you get the idea. It sucks. These were 2 very winnable games. Even if they just pull out the Pittsburgh game in like a shootout, our tone is so much different. We can stomach the second loss. We can stomach a loss on the second half of a back-to-back that much more. In a game with bad goaltending, it sucks. It's a tough spot to be in and I don't know. They got to dig themselves out of it. 1-4-1. It's bad, but it's not I mean, look at the Nashville Predators. Look at the Colorado Avalanche. It's you can get out of it. And you know what? Last season taught me a lot. Like, last season sucked so bad, and I saw, but like even the start to the season, and honestly just the entire season. But I think Lance tweeted out something tonight comparing this year to last year. So this year they're 1-4-1. This time, through 6 games last season, they were 2-4. And as bad as last season was, as much as it sucked, and as much as they just could not get their heads above 500, you woke up one day in March and they were still somehow in it. So just claw your way back to 500, and I don't know, just go from there. The mission should be you play, if you're in Chicago on Saturday, gotta win that one. You're going to have rest. Mm-hmm. You're playing a very winnable, a very beatable opponent. Mm-hmm. And then you head back home and you face the Dallas Stars, and that's going to be a tough one. Also
a beatable opponent. They just signed a mid-goaltender to an 8-year contract.
Yeah, it's a big contract, but you play Chicago, then Dallas, but then you get Detroit. That's a very winnable game. Then you play a Florida team that probably will still be without Barkov. Then you got the Islanders, then Detroit again, then Ottawa. Like, there's winnable games coming up. Get back to 500. If you're back to 500 as soon as next Saturday against Detroit, actually no, it's not possible now. If you can just by November get back to 500, I feel like that should be the goal here.
Yeah, just one game at a time.
Just win 2 out of every 3. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty reasonable ask, But knowing this team and then their ability to surprise us, maybe they'll surprise us in a good way for once,
Maybe. Okay. I think that's enough talk for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. If you still have the motivation to listen to people talk about this team, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at the Sabre Report. Also on Instagram and TikTok at the Sabre Report. If you listen to this on YouTube, thank you very much for listening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you want updates for the pod, you can follow us at Sabre Report Pod on Twitter. Go give our friends over at the Buffalo Sports Talk podcast a listen. They just dropped a great episode talking about a big win against the Jets on Monday, and also about the blockbuster Amari Cooper edition. That must be nice, talking about big additions in season. But yeah, go give those guys a listen. They're great.
They are great.
So, I think other than that, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for listening. Take care. And as always, go Sabres.
Go Sabres.